Yeah, perfect. Great. I'm really happy that Navid Rekabsaz is here because he's my supervisor. And even though he cannot attend, I'm very happy to be part of this workshop and not investigate the only technical side of this bias topic, because we all saw there's been a profound research already conducted on this. What I was focusing on is more the user perspective, because every one of us, we're currently dealing every day, every time with these information systems. And my question was, do perceived gender biases in retrieval results affect relevance judgments? And of course, I have a small agenda. We conducted an experiment. And what my goal is for today is to bridge kind of the gap between sociology, bias, stereotypes, and information systems and information retrieval. So, of course, now after this presentation, at least we know that we all walk through the world and we kind of have these unconscious biases in us. We see people and we see pictures of them in our heads. You see me as a woman, you don't know anything about me, and you categorize me unconsciously. You categorize me, and this process we humans are experts at. Our evolutionary time frame that our species went through, our brain became perfectly in categorizing people, humans, animals, to distinguish quickly between friend and enemy. Here, bias comes into existence, into helping us of how to associate certain traits to these friend and enemy. A friend is good and enemy is bad, per se. And here, different stereotypes come into existence as well, because this is how we see certain groups and quickly say, this is the belief of this group and everyone in this group behaves the same. I mean, I guess most of you study computer science. We are all nerds in the cellar eating pizza, wearing hoodies. Of course, it's the stereotype. I'm a woman. I was told as a child, girls are bad at math. You don't have to go into physics, go into arts, music. And my brother, he was told, oh, do math, and he sucked at it. So, you know, girls are bad at math, real men don't cry. We all know the stereotypes. And there were big studies conducted of not only I as woman see myself and you as man and woman see yourself in a stereotypical way, but of course how you see others. And this you can see here is really briefly conducted of how women are perceived stereotypically. I am social, I'm less intelligent, but I'm emotional and warm. And men, whereas, are ambitious. They are aggressive and always competent, but therefore less emotional sensitive. And there are different sociological phenomena, for example, stereotype threat, where when I believe the stereotype, can behave accordingly. And there are really nice studies found that girls who are told girls are bad at math are hesitant to go into STEM subjects, as I was a child. So as we saw today, of course, stereotypes are not only existing in this room and this world, but in the information retrieval systems we interact with. And as Ibrahim already showed, and my supervisor Navid, these information retrieval systems have found to not only show biases, gender biases, for example, but exaggerate them. But how can this happen? I mean, we have a query, and I'm dealing with fairness-sensitive queries today. And this is what my experiment is based on. And a search engine can be considered as biased if its documents show an unbalanced and an unbalanced presentation of viewpoints. And this is a bias if it appears systematically and it results in an unfair treatment of certain groups, as it is the case, for example, for gender bias. I think you all know this. For occupations, there are typical male and female occupations that we have pictures, not only in our heads, but that appear systematically in the information systems we interact with. So there was a really nice study conducted dealing with image search results. And what I found interesting is that not only Google shows statistically more picture of stereotype confirming occupations, for example, CEO being men, but that participants in experiments as well, judged these, for example, as in higher in quality. A CEO is male, whereas CEO pictures of females were judged lower in their quality. So participants said, this this search engine is not showing me the highest ranked pictures that are of best quality. And what we asked ourselves is, how is this looking for retrieval results, for textual-based retrieval results? Do people perceive the quality different? Is there a difference in male or female biased search results? And our research is based on 2 research questions, but today, because of the time, I will focus on the first one, which is, how do gender-biased search results of bias-sensitive queries influence the relevance judgment of users or annotators? To begin with, we created a new data set because you saw MS Marco is already some kind of bias itself. And we created 118 different queries, which are partly from MS Marco, for example, how to become CEO, and are partly self-created. And for every query, there are different document versions, which are either male, female, or neutral. They contain words, the females, for example, as girl, woman, or man. And for the male bias documents, they contain words as boy or man, for example. And they are clustered in 7 gender dimensions. As you can see here, appearance, childcare, cognitive capabilities, domestic work, career, physical capabilities, or sex and relationship. For these queries, we expect different stereotypes for these categories. For example, of course, there are typical female categories such as appearance, domestic work. We assign certain female traits with them, as well as some male categories where we could expect some career, for example, cognitive capability or physical capability. Based upon this, we created a search engine resembling UI, and we inserted different fairness-sensitive queries in them and showed participants different documents. And they are not only male or female bias in their content, but they're as well relevant or non-relevant. That means, for example, for a query such as how to become CEO, there are non-relevant documents as well shown to the participants, which are not at all about CEOs. In our research group, we annotated all the queries and documents in the data set, and we chose the 6 best suited that could be judged in accordance to their relevance from a scale from 1 to 4 by our participants. And these are the queries we chose. You can see for the category, for example, appearance, it's what is considered plus size. For career, it's, as we already saw, how to become CEO, or for domestic work, how to easily clean at home. These queries are per se neutral, there's no gender indication in it. But still, we assumed that for the female categories, our participants would judge the documents higher that are expressing the corresponding gender. For example, for appearance, that they would judge female documents higher, vice versa for the male categories, that they would judge male document higher. So what did our participants see? They were shown the search query, as I already told you, how to become CEO, for example. And then they got a document about men. What enables a man to become CEO? They saw a relevant document expressing a stereotype confirmation because career is a male category. They saw what enables some women to become CEO, which fits the search query, but is not stereotype confirming. And they saw some non-relevant documents as well. As I told you, how to become CEO, they saw something about male construction workers and female construction workers, for example. And they were asked to rate the relevance of these query document compilations. In our experiments, we conducted them on Amazon Turk, and we did not track the gender in our main experience, but we conducted a second one where we tracked the gender to see if there's any influence of the participant gender. But for the sake of time, I will just focus on our big experiment with 50 participants. So what are the results of our study? What we found is that for the group of relevant documents is the following. For better comprehensibility, I would just quickly focus on the table to explain it. You can see here the document type, which is relevant. So the document content fits the search query itself. We got the query categories, you know them already. These are the gender dimensions that I presented earlier. And we got the average relevance rating of F documents, which are the ones with a female gender, and the male documents that express a male gender. And we concluded the F minus M, which is the difference between these two relevance ratings. Then we have the column with reflects expected bias. This is the one after the F minus M. And this indicates if the differences of F minus M reflect the gender bias, which is expected in respect to each category. For instance, since the average judged relevance scores of domestic work show a higher value for the female content document, this result indicates a bias towards female, which follows our expected gender bias. And as you can see here, for all categories besides appearance, the expected bias is reflected. So that means that our participants had a tendency to rate stereotype confirming documents higher than their disconfirming pendants, which is really interesting to see here for the relevance judgment and for the relevant documents. And for the non-relevant documents, the bias reflection is a little mixed, but we see here that for all male categories, which is career, cognitive capability, and physical capability, our participants had the tendency to even judge the documents higher in relevance, even though their content is non-relevant. So when we asked about a CEO, when they had the query, they even judged the construction worker query higher. It was about male. Or about IQ, they judged the male documents higher, even though the content is not relevant per se. So I'm already at the end of this brief presentation to sum up our limitations and our future work and outlook. So of course, our external validity is limited. We conducted it at MTurk. You already know that it cannot be transferred to the real world 100%. And it's in an online setting, of course. We could not check what these people were doing while conducting the experiment. They took 300 seconds in general for the whole experiment, which is for 6 query judgments, a lot of time. So we were trying to figure out if this could be an influential factor as well. And the formulation of queries could be problematic as well as the general understanding of relevance, because this is not a really linearly to comparable concept. Everyone is perceiving relevance differently. And the last point is that we only included binary gender. And I wish that for further research in the whole IRS domain, we could include more gender dimensions as well, because in our society, there's not only male or female. There are other gender categories which are not really portrayed in this current research. So for further studies, there should be a bigger sample size. There should be other information tracked, such as gender categories, cultures, or age groups. And they could be assessed if other influential factors such as gender stereotypes and beliefs play a role in this. And of course, there could be other experiments, including ranking bias, as Ibrahim told us and showed us, or bias query suggestion, if they could influence the relevance of participants. Yeah, that was my presentation. Please. Is there any questions, please?